Hate to see it botched? Here's the best bits, a Botching It Up podcast short clip.
Yes, I watched Omega versus Okada. I think the first Omega versus Okada match.
It's the first in their series of hour-long 5-star matches. I think they had.
Okay.
I think they eventually had 4, but there's like a trilogy of important matches.
Well, I enjoyed myself. Kenny Omega initially came out. I thought I'd make this point, and I've always thought Kenny Omega's looks like a bit of a wet wipe. I have to admit, like I've never seen him as like a tough guy necessarily. That might be because of his AEW character these days. Just him drinking milk while Hangman drinks whiskey. You know, he makes a hell of a lot better Terminator than Triple H does. He comes out to like a Terminator thing where he steals some clothes from some Japanese blokes and then comes out with like a sawn off shotgun on his back. And there's a lot of theatrics in Japanese wrestling of the Western guys. I've noticed they go hard into their characters, the Western dudes in Japan.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a package deal. The Japanese like the Western dudes doing their style of wrestling, and packaged in that is the soap opera style presentation.
Sure.
I think, unfortunately, AEW has put too much comedy into the elite faction. So him, the Young Bucks, Cody's kind of been saved from it. So they've all been lessened from the hype that they used to have when they were part of the Bullet Club, because they don't seem as threatening as they used to be.
Honestly, I think my major problem with AEW is that there's too much comedy in general. Considering that they book themselves as the alternate company to WWE, who is long and well known for bad comedy, it seems to be in AEW running rampant over all levels of the card. In WWE, at the very least, you largely have it relegated to the lower and mid cards, whereas in AEW, comedy can be at any point and is actually more likely to be in the upper tier and main event than the lower, which I find extremely strange.
I've always found it strange how they've booked Kenny Omega, because he was, I mean, I know you might not agree because you were never big on the Japanese style, but he was considered for a long time the best wrestler in the world, or at least the most exciting prospect. Coming into AEW, all of that's been wiped clean and he's lost it, and they're already treating him like he's this grizzled veteran that everyone else has to prove themselves against him, rather than just having a really solid run of him just being the best. One of those small shows they did in that gym like a month back, and one of those he had a match with, I think it was either Scorpio Sky or Kaz, I can't remember who, and they put on a 5-star match just in this empty gym with no crowd.
Yeah.
And I don't know why Omega's not doing more of that. I think because they reference it a lot, they don't want to NWO themselves, and they don't want to book themselves too strong and make everyone turn on them thinking that they're just booking themselves to win.
This is the problem, though, in my opinion, of the booking in AEW. They have, you're completely right. They have this idea that they don't want to be Jeff Jarrett or they don't want to be Triple H because they've spent their entire careers having a go at the people that book themselves to look good. And now they're finally in a position where they have to book themselves. So they're not booking themselves well, apart from Cody, who seems to be the only guy with a head on his shoulders, you know? What they're forgetting and what their egos are forgetting, I'm afraid, is that I represent normal people. I've been a wrestling fan for a very long time, and I knew who they were before AEW was around. I'd heard their names. As somebody that follows the wrestling business, if anybody is a name, you're going to know roughly who they are, or you will have seen them. I saw the Young Bucks years ago as Generation Me in TNA. I know who, I'm aware of these people, but their ego tells them, because they're booking to a certain level of fan, that everybody knows who they are, and they're already Jeff Jarrett. They're already Triple H. Whereas in reality, non-wrestling fans or very casual wrestling fans will have heard of them for the first time on AEW, and they can self-referentialize all they want, and they can have the commentators talk about their wonderful New Japan matches. But the casual fan, if they book themselves to lose, they're going to look like losers, because they don't have the videotape to show us that they're winners. And even if they do, that's in a different promotion. So while I understand the point of them attempting to not book themselves to be Triple H, I'm afraid that they're not Triple H.
Honestly, I think when they first started AEW, they were just booking and promoting this whole thing to hardcore fans that knew who they were. They weren't booking this for the casuals or the upper mainstream that only watch WWE. And then when they got the TNT deal on TNT, they started getting 1 million viewers a week. I think the whole thing blew up way quicker than any of them thought it was going to be. So they were only planning on booking their shows for the people who knew who Kenny Omega was and people who were excited to watch the Young Bucks. But now they're in this situation, maybe because they got Jericho, because they got John Moxley. Their audience is much wider than they thought they would be only a year into this thing.
And that's probably very true. I think that they desperately need to adapt, and they need to adapt soon. What I have seen over the past couple of months, as I told you last week, is that Kenny Omega has become more likable to me. I've seen more of his talent. I'm starting to see him more as a major guy. Same thing with Page. I've always seen Cody as a major guy. Young Bucks not doing themselves any favors, man. Still not doing themselves any favors. Not only do they just not come across as likable to me, but I hardly ever see them wrestle. And when I do see them wrestle, I see them lose.
I actually think we're seeing a slow heel turn on the Bucks. I think because they want Page to be the guy. So although he's being slightly standoffish and heelish in this storyline he's got with the Bucks, I think they want him to be the face of the company in like a year's time. So I think in this story with him, the Bucks are gonna actually become the heels.
But just, I mean, forgetting everything that Cornette says or what the Bucks represent to me, or obviously Dave Meltzer, who's now apparently a heel, to me anyway, the Bucks are not fucking likable, man. I don't understand how people can enjoy like to like them. I don't see anything about them or their characters or their aesthetic which makes me think, hey, yeah, man, I'm a Young Bucks fan. They just come across as annoying, I'm cleverer than you, holier than thou, sarcastic dweebs.
You know what happened, I think? 5 or even 3 years ago, they were a revolutionary new style of wrestling. Whether you love it or hate it, and I know you hate it, but they adopted this new style, which was a stunt show. And before they became famous enough to mainstream fans, the style was adopted by everyone. So now people like you and people and casuals that know this style of wrestling don't see that these guys were some of the very few that were doing it first. I feel like they're not as big as what they would have been.
I don't know, man. I was watching these guys I remember these guys in 2010 when Hogan was in control of TNA, and they were called Generation Me. They had no personality, and they were spot monkeys, and I quite liked them. They had some decent matches. They had some great matches with Motor City Machine Guns. They didn't have any personality, but that's where they were on the card. Now, I've gone away from them. They've gone away from me for a couple of years. They've come back with this self-righteous attitude and this like, we are massive deals. And I say, okay, show me then. And they don't have anything to back it up. You know,
I think
I don't see anything that apparently has changed since I saw them as a ripoff of Jeff and Matt Hardy 10 years ago.
well, in Japan they were in Bullet Club. They were bad guys, they were heels. People hated them. So I think maybe they're not slotting into their role as the faces over in America so well. I think they do a very good job at being snobby little brats that
Yeah.
you want to hate.
100%. And if you know what, if they change their character to be snobby little brats, I might get behind watching their matches.
Unfortunately, they and Omega, they are the brand. All Elite is built around their faction, so they are the faces of this company.
All Elite aren't very likable, though.
I know because
Like
they're
the
all
whole, even the whole character in itself, the Elite, these don't come across as likable people. They come across as indie Japanese wrestlers who have somehow hit it big and taken Tony Khan's money and are telling everybody how great they
But
are.
that's the point. They were a heel stable in Japan. They were a side faction, if you like, inside the Bullet Club faction, which is meant to be the baddest motherfuckers beating everyone up. They were never good guys. But being the face of the company, you kind of have to be. Same with Cody. Cody's naturally a bad guy. He's smarmy. He wears better suits than you could ever afford, and he's just got this cocky attitude about him. He's naturally a heel, but
And yet Cody is currently the best babyface in the business. So Cody has realized that he's the face of the company and changed his fucking character. Whereas the Young Bucks are still sniveling and telling everybody how great they are while they play on their fucking Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, and I think they should be heels. I think they should turn in this Hangman story. Anyway, back to Omega. I think we were to rebook Omega's run in AEW. He should have been hot shit from day one. He should have gone out and I understand their idea of the way they're booking the elite, but I think he should have gone out and just beat everyone all the time. Not buried people. He should have had those 5-star style matches he had in Japan and made everyone else look good by having awesome matches.
Once again, bro, all I heard about when AEW came in was how great Omega was. And I hadn't watched Wrestle Kingdom, and I didn't know fuck squat about fucking New Japan. And all I was told was that Omega is the greatest fucking thing in professional wrestling right now. And what I saw was a bumbling, fumbling, finger-pointing actor who didn't really do much, didn't have a character, and kept losing all the time. And it's taken ages in AEW for me to come around to Kenny Omega and say, actually, I kind of really like this guy. And he's had progressively better matches. And obviously, I've started to look back into the New Japan stuff, and he's got a lot to give, I think, to the wrestling industry. They didn't book him like that for a long time. Like, I'm looking at this new thing, this great new wrestler who everybody is raving about, and I just see the same Kenny Omega that you did at the start of AEW without knowing anything about him. So it doesn't give off like a good impression.
Yeah, they definitely dropped the ball. So I sent you to go watch the Okada Omega match. And so you've now seen the Omega that everyone was excited about.
Like, share, and subscribe to keep it botched up, brother.